It's -50. Whether that's -50 Fahrenheit or Celsius, doesn't matter. It is so cold, your eyelashes are freezing. Where exposed skin just kind of stops working. The wind is sharp enough to cut. And in the middle of it, a dog team is running. Not wandering, not exploring, but running. Because somewhere ahead in the town of Nome, Alaska, children are dying. The only thing that can save these kids now is 150 dogs. You're listening to True Crime Culinary. I'm your host, Leah Jack. Let's sink our teeth into this story. Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of True Crime Culinary, where food isn't just food. It's also cultural, history, fun factoids, a bit of survival. It's history and fun facts in one bite-sized pod. I'm your host, Leah, a newly double-mastered, and I don't actually know what the right term is. What am I? I'm not a doctor, that's for show. Am I just M squared? TBD. And I hold 2 master's degrees in psychology. So you could say I really love brains and thinking. 'Tis my favorite. Yes, I am proud of myself. And how am I celebrating? With a survival story. I love to think about how someone decided what to eat, how they slept, what decisions they made, where'd they go to the bathroom. I just like to know all the details. And while I started this episode thinking I was going to talk about bacon, I got totally sidetracked. Soon you're going to understand why. Because today we're going to talk about pemmican. Not pelican, not the bird, but it sounds like pelican, just replace the L's with M's. Pemmican. Before researching for this episode, I'd never heard of pemmican. So if you have heard about it, gold star, please email me at truecrimeculinary@gmail.com and tell me how you learned about it, and even better, whether you've tasted it, because I have some questions. Apart from that, don't worry, we will cover bacon on another episode, but this was just too interesting to pass up, so let's get chilly. Okay, what is pemmican? I wouldn't say it's cute, but it is not about aesthetics. This thing is made for survival. It's one of those things where if you're starving, it becomes your absolute favorite food. It is dried meat and fat, ground together into something incredibly dense and shelf-stable. That's it. No plating, no garnish, personality, arguably, it is a personality. But here's the thing, it totally works. And it didn't come from European explorers or a recent chef. It was developed by indigenous communities in North America. Are we surprised? No, we are not. It especially comes from the Cree and Métis because, of course, it's smart, efficient, and engineered, so we know it came from indigenous populations because they are some smart people. And while I did find pemmican referenced in many a European expedition, such as ones on ship, I'm focused today on a different one. But why was pemmican so often used? And it's because it is portable, long-lasting, and incredibly calorie-dense. Some versions include dried berries, which added small amounts of micronutrients, not totally enough to get you away from scurvy, but enough to contribute, right? And when you're surviving, when you're trying to get by on the absolute minimum, every little bit counts. The word pemmican comes from the Cree word. Am I going to say the word correctly? Probably not. But it's spelled P-I-M-I with a hat, H-K-A with a hat, N. We're going to assume it's roughly pronounced pemmican. And it translates to manufactured grease or fat that has been rendered. Honestly, not wrong, because the core of pemmican is dried meat, usually bison, rendered fat, and sometimes has dried berries. And that's it. But the way it's made matters. The meat is dried until it's almost brittle, and then it's ground into a powder. The fat is melted down, and then everything is mixed together and packed tightly. No air, no moisture, which means that it's not going to spoil for a very, very long time. Something that compact is also really important because a lot of times in survival or expedition scenarios, whatever you carry is what you've got. When you're walking or expeditioning or trying to rescue young children, you really want to think about every single ounce you're carrying. There were definitely regional preferences, but think of it less of like one recipe and more like a category of survival food, which sounds familiar, kind of like bacon, which again, we will cover at another time. But at one point, pemmican was so important that it was basically currency. During the fur trade in Canada, I can't say Canada without wanting to say Canada, mea culpa. Companies like the Hudson's Bay Company relied on it to feed voyagers, people traveling thousands of miles by canoe. Again, canoe, famously a petite boat. So you don't have a lot of space. You don't want it to be weighed down. You need stuff that's super dense and super nutrish. There were conflicts over pemmican, like political tension over dried meat and fat, which keeps the entire system running, so it makes sense. These days, it's not in the spotlight, but I did Google pemmican, and you can find some small producers of it, kind of like a la jerky vibes. And again, if you have come into contact with this, or you even recommend a certain pemmican producer, please let me know. But let's go back to the winter of 1925, where 150 dogs and 20 mushers are on the way to try and save children from a diphtheria outbreak spreading through Nome. Also, it's storming because it's wintertime. What is diphtheria? It's not subtle. It starts like a sore throat, and then a thick gray membrane forms in the back of your throat. It spreads, it hardens, and to me, this sounds like an alien horror movie because now you slowly suffocate. And it mostly affects children. And the only thing that can stop it is antitoxin. Where is Nome? Nome is an old gold mining town. It is on the left side of Alaska, like almost the closest you can get to Russia at the water. So apparently, I read that like at one point people were just finding gold on the beach, and so there were thousands of people there when the gold was everywhere. And then as soon as there was no more gold, it kind of became this very small town. So that's where we are now. What happened in Nome? Well, there was a doctor who was treating everybody in the area and realizes that his antitoxin is expired. Now he's thinking, oh, shoot, okay. P.S., the harbor just froze, so the boats can't get anywhere. It's too stormy to fly, and were there cars? Maybe, but I don't think they were ready to kind of handle that terrain. So they think, okay, well, hopefully we'll get through cold and flu season. And there's kids coming in who have sore throats, and he's like, okay, it doesn't look like diphtheria, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. Also, if it is diphtheria, it's very, very contagious, so I should be seeing a ton of cases. And it seems like things escalated very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, he has a ton of kids who are very sick, and they're dying very quickly. They're dying within like 2 weeks from their first symptom. So now he's panicking, and he's trying to figure out what to do. And I say he, like literally everybody is panicking because they just can't get anywhere. They're stuck. So they turn to dogs. You like dags? Yes, dags. Now the dags, and their mushers have to plan as well because this is covering, I think, like 600 miles, maybe more. And you have to be conscious that just like any other creature, a dog is going to get very tired running full tilt for 600 miles. And they need breaks. They need to be able to kind of like sleep, go to the bathroom. I don't know. So how are they going to maximize the speed and minimize the time needed to get from wherever they are to Nome with the medication? They decide we're going to make this a relay. 20 mushers, 150 dogs, and a chain of movement across Alaska. Each team runs a stretch. Hands off the serum, next team goes. No stopping, no delays. It blows my mind that this was all planned, like in the middle of winter and also like under duress, right? Like these people are not calm. Well, I mean, I bet they are, but like they're trying to make something really important happen, not a lot of resources, and they're having to do this just the entire time knowing that there are literal children's lives at stake. How crazy is that? Now, a bit about the dogs. One of these teams is led by Togo. He's experienced, which is a nice way of saying older than ideal for this, but he's also the most reliable dog that his musher, Leonard Sapala, has. And what they're about to do is the most dangerous part of the journey. They don't take the long way around, cut across the Norton Sound, which is not solid land. It is a literal frozen ocean. And that means there are cracks. It's like trying to run across ice cubes. From watching a bit of Discovery Channel, I'm pretty sure there's 8 to 10, 12 dogs? That weighs, 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds? You've got the sled itself and then the human. So we're talking, I'm guessing 1,500 to 2,000 pounds that you're trying to pull across, again, ice cubes, and that are just kind of moving around, fracturing. What if a paw gets in there? What if you tip? There's just so many factors. And yet they plod along. At one point, the team gets separated. And then what happens? Sapala has only one option. Now, to me, this is not the first option I would think of. And I cannot believe that this happened and then it worked. But he ties a rope around Togo, throws the dog. I don't understand if he threw him onto a beach, but let's say another piece of, safety. The dog turns around, pulls the rope. You heard that correctly. The dog turns around, pulls the rope, pulls his entire team and the human to him and saves them not only from drowning, but from floating out to the ocean. Can you imagine? I have goosebumps. I've been reading about this and I have had goosebumps the entire time. Now telling you I have goosebumps. There's actually a movie called Togo where they have this scene and I thought it was just some movie embellishment, but no, that is a real thing that happened. So Togo and his team run over 250 miles. It's the longest and most dangerous stretch of the entire relay. And then near the end, Balto takes over. Now, this is where I think it's a cartoon movie that I've seen. And Balto tends to be the dog that's more famous. His stretch is not the longest, but it is the final one. And it's in blizzard conditions, near zero visibility. And at one point, his musher cannot see the trail. The trail, I think, was marked by posts or something, but the snow is so deep, it's so windy, it's so white out that they can't see anything. Mind you, they've already gone, right? This is the last stretch. They're just we just have to get this medication to these kids and we could die, right? We could go off the trail. We could never find our way back. We could freeze to death. And Balto's hold my dog bone. He gets his nose to the ground. He follows his instincts and his sniffer helps get the serum in how long? 5.5 days. That means this crew, I don't know if that's the correct way of saying it. This crew of people and dogs got this serum across more than 600 miles in the winter in Alaska in less than 6 days. That is banana pants and amazing. May we rejoice. February 2nd, 1925, the serum arrives in Nome, saves countless lives. But how did they do it? Well, apart from navigation, which I'm not going to go into, I'm going to talk about the food. Because this wasn't just bravery, it was logistics, it was planning, and it was understanding that to make this work, everybody had to be firing on all engines. That means you need calories. You need that fuel. And what do dogs need? They also need the fuel. What does Pemmican have? Meat. So everybody's eating the same stuff, apparently. With the Pemmican, they had high fat, high calorie, compact. Just remember running across the ice cubes, right? You're saving every ounce you can. It also needs to be food that can survive the cold. If you don't like cracking your teeth when you're already cold and you just want to eat something. But the pemmican, because of the fat, doesn't freeze as easily. And so it is much easier for people to eat. Musher and mushy were able to eat pemmican more easily than any other food that you could have brought. They're running for hours in sub-zero temperatures, burning massive amounts of energy. I'm guessing around 5 to 10,000 calories per day, carrying almost everything they need to survive. So you don't want bulkiness, you don't want something that spills or spoils, you don't want something that freezes and then you can't eat it, and you need it to be calorie dense. So our friend Pemmican takes care of all of those needs. I believe Balto has a statue in Central Park. Togo, when I Googled him, I did see a stuffed Togo. So I think he's somewhere in a museum stuffed. He does look really cute. I do wonder if he wanted to be stuffed, but I think it's pretty cool, no matter what, that both of the dogs were recognized, even if Togo's story took a little bit longer to be recognized than Balto's. Let's just do a round of applause for amazing dags, hey? And when you look at this story, it's super easy to focus on the drama, the storm, the distance, the near misses, the whiteout, can we go back to the ice cube slush that people were running across? But beneath that, you still need food, and you need something that is not just comfort, but also strategy. And can we again thank the indigenous people for coming up with something that could handle any one of these scenarios, weather, infrastructure, distance. So I didn't know what pemmican was, but it played a massively important role in this super cool story of people and animals working together to save wee children. And I have to say, if I see pemmican, you best believe I'm buying that and I'm going to taste it. I probably will lean towards one that has a little bit of fruit in it, but I think it's so cool. I am so grateful to know this story. I hope you enjoyed this story. And again, if you see or come across pemmican, please don't hesitate to email me at truecrimeculinary.com. Can't wait to see you next week. Until next time, stay curious and be careful what's in your cup. Check out our show notes for sources, hit that subscribe button, rate and review the podcast anywhere you listen.